Hey guys, welcome to my latest insane adventure. At least I can defend it by saying it's all for a good cause. That cause being the preservation of history and your entertainment. Hey guys, welcome to the garage. I have got quite a tale for you today. And a big mess to deal with as soon as possible. Where to start? One, a lot of this stuff is from the last few swap meets I've been to, and some stuff from my parents' house, which I sold recently, along with my sister and brother-in-law's help. But this corner is the new stuff I just got back with a little while ago. Hear the rain in the background. Yeah, that did not help matters at all. So, this is the main object of interest. It's all in pieces now. But what it is a rare, very rare, might be the only one in the world. I can't imagine they made very many of them. It's a Garod, or do you say Garod, TV. It's a porthole of sorts. So this is the screen bezel. Well, I mean, it's not a porthole of sorts. It is a porthole, completely round screen. Very unusual design in that goes in here. There's no chassis. One side of it is just the picture tube and speaker below. And then the other side has the chassis, which is this guy here, not to be confused with that chassis there. It is an AM, FM radio, TV, and there's a phonograph in it. Which in and of itself wasn't unusual, but it's an unusual brand. I believe, I know it's a small brand, and pretty sure it's out of the New York area. So that's where you'll find most of them. And they didn't make very many. They weren't around for very long. 47 to 52, probably something like that. They didn't make very many console models. So this particular chassis they did use in a bunch of tabletop models, which are rather collectible. It has a rather interesting dial and very distinct knobs and whatnot. Pretty well made too, from appearances. But this, the porthole, I've never seen one of these before. Let's get one of the doors open so you can get a little better feel for it. Phonograph is still in here. I can't pull it out unless the doors swing away. So yeah, there's one annoying thing about these combo sets with these doors. You need a lot of radius because they swing completely around and fold to the sides out of the way. And without this door completely folded around, you can't pull out the phonograph tray. There's a look at the control area. So yeah, all the controls and the chassis are on this side, and the picture tube is all on its own on this side. So the picture tube, the yoke, and the focus coil are on that side, and that's it. So aside from being an unusual brand, what also makes this unusual is the picture tube. It's a 15-inch. It's a 15 AP4, which before this I thought only Dumont used. They're completely, well, I shouldn't say that. Nothing's completely unobtainable, but they're certainly very difficult to source. It did have a brightener on it, which is a little troublesome, but because it's completely on its own, you have a lot of leeway with mounting. And I do have a 16-inch all-glass picture tube, which I can use if I need to. So, let me tell you a little bit more about how I came to acquire this and what I'm going to do with it. Okay, so I was alerted to this being on Facebook Marketplace more than 2 years ago. And somebody alerted me, one of my regular viewers, and they recognized it for what it was and knew it was rare and suggested I go get it. And it was listed for $1,000. And at the time, I was like, okay, I'm not inclined to pick up a very large combo set, rare though it may be. for any price, certainly not for $1,000. And I forgot about it until about a year later. I noticed it dropped to $500. Still, my situation hadn't changed. I completely forgot about it again until, flash forward another year, it was down to $50, and it made the rounds again with the collector saying, hey, somebody's got to go get this thing. I sat on the fence for a while, but I did contact the seller just to kind of feel out the situation. And I said, yeah, I'd like to stop by, at least take a look at it, check the picture tube and whatnot. A week went by, and she said, just take it, free. Just come and get it. I want it out of my house. So, I went there today. But before that, I swung by Elgin and picked up this stuff from a friend out in Colorado who had got the rights to an old repair shop in Colorado that was just chock full of equipment and parts and all kinds of craziness. So I got a bunch of Suncor stuff. I got another VG91 and a TVA92 and a TVA93 and a computer monitor analyzer. And the guy that brought it to me wasn't the guy who got it. I know this is getting confusing. So my friend picked this stuff up, but he wasn't coming to Illinois anytime soon, but he had a friend out there who was, and he's the one who actually brought this and met me in Elgin, Illinois, and he gave me this picture tube, which is a 21CEP4. Long neck, so it won't exactly fit in a Predicta, but it would be compatible with them and lots of other TVs. So he asked me if I wanted it. I said, sure. So that's the newer stuff in the background. We'll get to that later. So I then went from Elgin to the south side of Chicago and checked this out. And I was by myself, and I brought a bunch of tools. My thought was, if I take out everything, that I could muscle it into my vehicle with the help of a dolly and some leverage. Turned out that it doesn't fit. And on the way, it occurred to me, hey, I got a friend and lives in that vicinity. So I texted him on my way over there, and I said, hey, if you're not doing anything, you think you can meet me over there and give me a hand? And he did. He was at work, but he was nearby, and he met me over there. Turns out that, yeah, it's exactly what I thought it was, and it's much better built than I expected, and it's much, much heavier and bigger than I expected. Ludicrous for me to do this by myself, but even with two people, with an empty cabinet, we could still barely lift it. Reason being, it's mostly made out of solid hardwood, not plywood. I think the sides are laminated plywood, but the rest of it is solid hardwood. You can get a taste of that here. Solid inch thick, dense wood. So this empty cabinet probably weighs 200 pounds. And the doors certainly don't help. I do have both the door pulls. One was missing in the photos I was provided, which bummed me out. But as soon as I walked in the door, she said, "Oh yeah, I got the missing handle." So the woman I got this from had been in that house, I think, her whole life, and she doesn't know where the TV came from. The house was 140 years old or so. She doesn't think her husband, who is no longer with us, I guess, she doesn't think that he got it. So it might have been there when they bought the house way back when. But she didn't know where it came from, but she wanted to remodel her basement, maybe looking to sell the house. She just wanted it out of there. And she checked out my Facebook profile, and she saw what I'm up to. So she was very happy to give it to someone who would appreciate it for what it was. Okay, so I have a Honda HR-V, which, yeah, it's a little hatchback SUV, but everything you see, and I've seen in my videos for the past many years, has fit into that vehicle. Very versatile, very handy, but this was about 1.5 inches too big in any dimension to fit into my vehicle. My buddy has a Honda, or no, I forget what he has, but he has a much larger SUV. However, the opening on the back was exactly the same size as mine. Interior's bigger, but it shrinks down where you put stuff in, so it wouldn't fit in his vehicle either. At that point, I'd been there for a few hours. I was getting tired and hungry. I was on the verge of just leaving it there or arranging to come back another day. But he contacted a friend at work who had a pickup truck. So he came. So at this point, we had 3 vehicles at her house now. And of course it fit in the pickup truck because, well, it's a pickup truck. And he exchanged vehicles with his friend, so we ended up with the pickup truck and we drove it back. And as soon as we got into the pickup truck, it started raining. And we didn't have anything good to cover so we get back as fast as we could. It did get a bit damp. I've dried it off. I don't think that there's really going to be any lasting harm. So it's here. It's here. I haven't checked it out all that thoroughly yet, but I did see right away that there is actually some pre-existing water damage. Mostly on the interior, but clearly it got wet on the inside, on this side, which is where the album storage would go. So, not the end of the world. It's annoying. There's some damage along the bottom too, finish loss and whatnot. I think you can see that here. Some paint splatters. But not the end of the world. Okay, so it is here. What the hell am I going to do with it? I'm not going to keep it. I knew that before I even went to go get it. I'm donating it to the museum in Ohio. I'm going to bring it there in the spring at the convention. Amusingly, I live half a block away from a truck rental place. So I could have rented a truck today if I knew that this was going to be too big. So when I go in the spring, I plan to rent a truck or a van and probably bring a bunch of stuff. I would like to restore it before I bring it and have the museum add it to their collection on display as a working set. But I know the museum is basically all the display area is taken up, so something else would have to be taken out for this to go on display. So they also auction off something every year to raise funds for the museum. So maybe this will get auctioned off. I haven't talked to the guys who run the museum yet, so they some of them know of my intents, but no decision has been made one way or the other. But I am not keeping this set. That for sure is a given. I've briefly looked at the chassis. It's very well made. And actually, it's compact and easy to carry, which is a nice thing. So you can probably see that variable cap up front there. So the AM and FM radio are built right into the TV chassis. Yeah, so that's a nice thing. So I can easily work on this. See, there's the yoke and the focus coil. I thought they would be plugged in. They appear to be hardwired. So that's why I think this set is almost custom in the way it's built. It was not easy to get apart. I had to basically take every screw out to get the picture tube out and the chassis and all that stuff. There is a second smaller chassis right here. I believe that is the audio amp. It has two very cool speakers behind this. I'm going to try to, I don't want to move this, but I'm going to try to get my camera back there so you can see it. They are mounted at a 45-degree angle from each other. A really odd arrangement, so they're kind of like, they radiate at each other, which seems like a bad thing to do, but that's how they made it. Cabinet is gorgeous. It's all mahogany. And even though there is some deteriorated finish, generally it's in really good shape. I will endeavor to just touch it up. I'll probably, I can take the doors off and clean them up. I'll put on some new finish around the bottom, but I think the bulk of it, very little damage or scratches or chipping or anything like that. And part of that is because it has a glass top over there. So, a very, very neat thing. But the most distinctive thing is this gorgeous porthole. It's actually reverse painted molded plastic. And then there's a piece of laminated safety glass that would go in front of that. I'll include some photos in this video, because I don't intend to reassemble it right now, because I'll just be taking it back apart again. I scoured the service info. The Early Television Museum even has a scanned copy of the original Garod service manual. This model I don't see listed. I didn't see a model number on this because it doesn't have the back. So I found there was info for this chassis, and they list a number of variations, but I do not know what exactly this is. I don't think it was a custom one-off made to order, but it's certainly not a common set by any stretch. Alright, well, I gotta straighten up the garage so we can get the car in here, and I'm gonna take all the Suncor stuff inside, and we'll wrap up this video with checking it out. And I might as well test this. Basically irreplaceable 15 AP4. Here's a better look at it with everything out of the way and a glass top. Put back on. I'm not sure if it's original or not. Probably not original. But sure, it's a nice accessory to it. And yeah, I'll get that bathroom sink installed one of these days. This will live in the garage indefinitely. Alright, let's test the CRT. First, let's take a look at it. One, it says Taylor on it, who I'm sure didn't make it. And if I feel along here, there's a seam around here. I'm sure it's a rebuild. Also notice the high voltage connector. If you see one of those, you know it's really, really old school. I'm pretty sure only Dumont used those on a couple really early post-war CRTs. Alright, let's give it a whirl. Well, that's always an excellent first step. Wait for the light bulbs to light up. Not very encouraging. The set must have cost a considerable amount when it's new, and I noticed that there was only one screw holding in both the main chassis and the audio amp, and the screws that support the CRT had clearly been removed several times. So I wonder how many picture tubes this might have gone through. That's odd. We have got no sign of life whatsoever. So we will let it cook. We will let it cook and see if it starts coming back to life. Geez, after a few minutes, we're just starting to see something. Which makes me think they really drove this thing into the ground, which is not good for me by any means. Let's try goosing this up to 7 volts. Brightener probably had closer to 8 volts on it for the filament voltage. So, yeah. Oh, it's not on 0 when I go to emissions now. It's slightly above with no cutoff control, really. Oh, yeah, let's get back to what? Come on. No. I brought out my Suncor for a second opinion, and I think there's something up with this CRT. So I have it now at 8 plus volts on the filament, and the emissions really aren't any better than if I drop it down to 6. And I have the grid bias all the way at minus 20. It should be at minus 52, meaning this thing should be turned on hard. And it's not making any difference when I change the bias on this. And it barely varies when I change the cutoff control. And if I put it in the cutoff test position, it does nothing, making me think we have an open grid G1, open grid. Which I don't know if you can fix, but we'll do the, for sure, the basic things like I showed in the video recently. I tried to resurrect the 12LP4 and chuck the pins, reflow the pins, whatever. But this base is on there pretty tight. I don't see any obvious cold solder joints or anything. But even nearly dead tubes, if you crank up the filament and change the grid bias that low, it should be emitting something, and it's essentially emitting nothing. And it's not getting any better as it runs. Yeah, a brightener will accelerate the demise, but I mean, this thing is just stone dead. But no indication of HK shorts, G1 short. But it does go down when I test G1. It's not quite to the bad, but it's questionable. No, the light bulb's on the other one. So the one on the left I got to somewhat light up. The one on the right never lit up, which indicates an open G2. So let me refer to this guy. And see, how do you test for open G1 or G2? I can cut off. So they have test shorts. I'm not sure how you check for open with this, or if this can test for open elements. Or it's an open cathode. I mean, an open cathode will do this too. You'll get, if you really push it hard, you get something. I think it's because it's actually ripping electrons off the grid, and the cathode is completely shot. It is possible to re-weld the cathode. So we're not giving up on this yet. And even if it is stone cold dead, I will hang on to it as a potential rebuild candidate, given its rarity. But we can move on with a test CRT in a 16LP4, 16DP4, or something. Okay, yeah, it shows good emissions, but I had to wiggle the adapter cable. I'm playing around with it now, and it's a little flaky. I tried doing that with the other CRTs, but let's revisit it. I got out my Suncor for a second opinion. It's giving me similar results, but I'm thinking there's something else going on here. Because if I vary the filament voltage while I'm checking emissions, so I'm now down to about 6, up to about 8, they're really not changing. And they're really not changing as I vary the grid cutoff voltage. Now if I put the bias all the way down to minus 20, whereas normally it'd be at minus 52, it's not changing as I change this. I go minus 20, this thing is being driven super hard on nothing. I'm thinking we may very well have an open cathode. Now I just checked a known good picture tube with my tester just to make sure that this thing is, and it tested like it should. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe we can try re-welding the cathode. We have an open grid, which is more problematic. Could try reflowing the pins or something, but I'm tired, I'm worn out. I don't want to do something stupid because I'm too tired, so we'll save that for another day. And for sure, if this thing really is shot, I will save it as a rebuild candidate because of its rarity. Just to dispel any doubts, here's a new old stock rebuild I picked up a few months ago that I knew was good, and yeah, this is how it's supposed to look. 6.3 volts, super bright neon bulbs, emission way over into the green, cutoff control like crazy. That's how it's supposed to work. So, oh well, can't win them all. Here's a brief look at the Suncor equipment. I decided I'll do a separate video on these. This video is long enough and I need a break right now. So, we have a VG91, which you've seen me use many times before. Mine developed some problems. I was able to repair it. I don't know if any of these work, but I think I'll pop this open and check the caps on this before I try using it. Also, the companion TVA92, which amplifies the output of this with variable gain and adds some additional drive signals and testing capabilities. And this, which you've never seen me use before, because it's for VCRs, which I don't work on, but it's a VC93 dedicated device for analyzing, troubleshooting, testing VCRs. And then there's this guy, which to me is the most intriguing of the lot, because I've never tried using one of these and don't know a whole lot about them. This is for computer monitors. Yeah, they made pattern generators, test equipment for computer monitors. But I think I might be able to use this with TVs as well. What's cool about this is you can program the horizontal and vertical frequency, like the resolution. Those of you older folks maybe remember monitors like an NEC multi-sync. There were computer monitors that could handle different vertical and horizontal frequencies corresponding to different resolutions and refresh rates. So I should be able to program this in to the parameters for a TV and use it. But of course, if I ever wanted to work on a computer monitor, I could do that as well. And it has a ringer test for flybacks, which is handy. This is more for solid state stuff. So you can test switching transformers, yokes, and flybacks. And a variable output drive level up to 300 volts, which is nice. But the tricky thing is the output. It's what a 15-pin connector. But I do have the final bit. I do have cables and manuals. So I think I just spied. Yeah, so this looks like it's the breakout cable for this for doing, I see red, green, blue, BNC. And I think there's all sorts of adapters here for like VGA and other things. So maybe there's a breakout one in here that goes to composite video. I don't know. And I do have the interconnect cables to go between these devices as well. But we'll check these out in a separate video. We did have one casualty out of this whole adventure. Did not realize there was a 78 RPM record on the turntable before we started transporting it, and it did break. These are very brittle, as you probably have seen in Three Stooges shorts and other comedy routines from the good old days. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. You'll be seeing a lot more about all this stuff in the not too distant future.